Some pharaohs took funerary rituals to epic levels. Tombs, like those in the Valley of the Kings, were massive, full of treasures, magical spells, and elaborate statues. The rituals to prepare such tombs could last years, involving dozens of priests, craftsmen, and artists. It was an investment in eternity, making sure the ruler's soul would thrive and remain powerful beyond death. Here's a fun and slightly bizarre fact. Some Egyptians believed in magical doubles called sht. These little figures were placed in tombs to do the deceased's work in the afterlife. They were like tiny immortal servants who would never complain, never ask for a raise, and could literally do your chores forever. Imagine having that in real life. Laundry day would be so easy. The underlying idea of all these rituals was connection. Death wasn't the end. It was another part of life's journey. Rituals linked the living and the dead, humans and gods, the earthly world and the cosmic order. Every gesture, chant, and object was meant to ensure harmony, balance, and safety, a reflection of how much the Egyptians valued order, life, and the sacred. So, funerary rituals weren't just strange for the sake of being weird. They were deeply practical, spiritual, and symbolic. They turned death from a frightening unknown into a carefully guided passage, full of magic, protection, and care. And while some practices might seem eerie today, they reveal a civilization obsessed with meaning, preparation, and cosmic balance, a civilization that believed life, death, and the divine were always connected. As we leave behind the tombs, mummies, and magical doubles, remember this: ancient Egypt treated death with the same care and ritual as life itself. Every action mattered, every symbol had purpose, and every soul deserved a safe passage. And next, we'll explore how Egyptians communicated with spirits, the rituals, ceremonies, and festivals that bridged the gap between the living and the dead, revealing even more of the strange, fascinating side of this ancient civilization. So far, we've explored how Egyptians lived their daily lives, how pharaohs began their mornings, and even the intricate funerary rituals that prepared the dead for the afterlife. But ancient Egyptians didn't just let the dead rest quietly. Nope. They believed the living and the dead could and should communicate. And this is where things get really fascinating and a little eerie. The Egyptians thought that spirits of the dead weren't gone entirely. They lingered nearby, watching over family, protecting property, or sometimes causing trouble if neglected. So, communicating with the dead was serious business. Families, priests, and even pharaohs performed rituals to honor, guide, and sometimes negotiate with these spirits. One common method was through offerings. Families would leave food, drink, or small treasures at tombs or household altars. It wasn't just generosity. It was practical magic. If a spirit was hungry or neglected, it could cause illness, misfortune, or bad luck. By leaving offerings, people kept their ancestors happy and ensured protection. Think of it as leaving cookies and a thank you note for grandma. Except grandma could also bring good fortune or curses, depending on her mood. Another fascinating practice was festivals dedicated to the dead. One such festival involved the family visiting tombs, singing songs, and presenting offerings in a public ceremony. There would be music, chanting, and sometimes feasts, all designed to honor spirits and strengthen the connection between the living and the dead. The idea was that the dead could enjoy the celebration and, in return, bless the living with health, fertility, and protection. Festivals like this blurred the line between life and afterlife, making death feel less distant and more present. Priests also played a central role in communicating with spirits. They would perform rituals involving spells, chants, and symbolic actions to guide souls safely to the afterlife or to call upon them for help. Some rituals were secret, performed only in the temple's inner chambers, and involved intricate magical tools. For example, a priest might use a wand, staff, or sacred figurine to channel energy and connect with a specific ancestor or deity. It was like spiritual Wi-Fi, connecting to worlds that most people couldn't see. Dreams were another key way the living communicated with the dead. Egyptians believed that sleep was a time when the soul could travel and meet spirits or gods. People would perform small rituals before bed, such as placing protective charms nearby, burning incense, or reciting prayers to invite safe and meaningful dreams. Some dreams were even interpreted as messages from ancestors, offering guidance, warnings, or advice. Imagine waking up and thinking, wow, Grandma just told me how to fix my crops in a dream. That was totally normal in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians took their spiritual safety very seriously, so much so that even small mistakes in these rituals could cause anxiety. Imagine if you accidentally left a ghostly figurine facing the wrong way. Yikes. Egyptians also believed that spirits could offer guidance in everyday life. Need help with a business deal? Consult a spirit. Seeking advice about crops or family disputes? Ask an ancestor. This idea made the spiritual world deeply practical, not just mystical or abstract. The dead weren't distant observers, they were active participants in the lives of the living. Some rituals were surprisingly playful. For instance, some households would leave small gifts or write letters to ancestors in the form of papyrus scrolls. These messages could include updates about daily life, requests for guidance, or even jokes. Yes, jokes. Egyptians didn't always take themselves too seriously, and humor found its way even into spiritual practice. Imagine leaving a scroll saying, "Hey Grandpa, please keep the Nile from flooding again." Also, love the new bread recipe. And it wasn't just families. Temples often performed public rituals to communicate with spirits, especially during festivals. These ceremonies could involve music, chanting, dances, and processions. The goal was to connect entire communities with the spiritual world, ensuring protection, prosperity, and guidance for everyone. It was a deeply social experience, magic, religion, and daily life intertwined. Even pharaohs participated in these rituals. They weren't just kings, they were mediators between gods, spirits, and humans. Pharaohs performed ceremonies to honor deceased ancestors or divine beings, ensuring cosmic balance. Some rituals involved symbolic gestures or offerings designed to strengthen the connection between the living ruler and the spiritual world, reinforcing their divine authority.